Titus Gebel. I'm a lawyer by education, but 20 years ago decided that this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I became eventually manager in the biotech industry and then in the venture capital industry. And there I discovered that it is a good idea to invest in mining, not what you think, but real hard rock mining with big trucks and excavators. Later oil and gas. So I started a company in 2006, which called Deutsche Rohstoff AG, which really was active in the primary sector. That means finding and mining metals, later producing oil and gas in the US. We were all over the place, Australia, Canada, Mongolia, US, Colorado especially. And yeah, that was quite successful. So in 2014, at the end of 2014, I could retire as the CEO of this company, which, by the way, went public at Frankfurt Stock Exchange in 2010 and is still listed there. And we made a big, it was quite a good success. And then from 2015 on, I dedicated my life to, because I was frustrated with politics and political systems, I dedicated my life on developing a new, what I call, product in the market of living together. And this product is called a free private city. And this is something I can explain later a bit, but the idea is really we need more products in how we live together because people are different and then people can choose what they like best. And it must be on equal footing. That means not one is the ruler and the other one has to obey, but it is rather a relationship of customer and service provider. That is my idea of government as a service. And since then I'm working on that front. I have a foundation called the Free Cities Foundation and a for-profit company called TIPOLIS that wants to make those projects happen.
I have a question. Like, actually, like, can you tell us a bit more about Free City and like what is the evolution of Free City from the idea? So like when you decided to create it and now, like what was the evolution, and yeah, to tell us a bit more about this.
Yeah, definitely. Before I begin, I mean, you need not only people and funds. The third thing you need, or maybe the first thing you need, is you need a country that is willing to grant you that autonomy. And that is the most difficult part, right? So the theory is the following. The defining feature of a free private city is that it's run by a for-profit company. We call it the operator. And this company acts as a government service provider. And in this capacity, the operator offers the citizens or residents of free cities protection of life, liberty, and property. And these services encompass normally internal and external security, a predefined legal and regulatory framework, and independent dispute resolution in case of conflicts. So what you would do in such an environment is you look what the rules are, and you say, if I like it, I enter into a citizens contract with the operator. And the citizens contract says you have to pay a yearly fee for these services, no taxes, right? It's a service fee, and you know how big it is. And within that framework, now comes the interesting part. A spontaneous order can develop, which emerges from the voluntary activities of all the residents, because there's not much regulation. As I said, it's basically a framework to enable security and protection of life, liberty, and property. But within that, there's much more freedom than we have today. And so as people can associate with each other, they can find together and form own groups, but they cannot force the others to join their groups, even if they're a majority. Right? This is a big difference. So and also the operator cannot later unilaterally change the citizen's contract. This is only possible if both parties agree, you and the operator. And if there are disputes, and there will be disputes, that's clear, even between you and the operator, this goes to external arbitration tribunals. And this is also already known, right? In international commercial law, it's exactly like that. So insofar, it's not so radical new as it might sound, because it's just transforming the service provider idea that you already know into a new area, the area of living together. And that is basically everything in a nutshell. Now to Loic's question, how does it work in practice, right? So in practice, it's of course much more difficult than just what I told you, because all the land in the world is already distributed to states. So we have to go to a state and say, well, this is a special economic zone next level. It's rather a special administrative zone. But if you give us more autonomy in that zone, we bring jobs, we bring investors that otherwise would not come to your place, and we create something where before was nothing. Because, you know, we need 100% voluntary participation. That also requires we start from zero, right? We do not force people that are already living there into that system. We are starting on basically on the green field and say, okay, let's create a free city here. And the people who like the idea and like the regulation, they come. And in exchange, the government is maybe even getting some payments for the infrastructure that we are using. And again, they profit from economic activity that is also amenable to the whole country. And that has worked with special economic zones. And in so far, I think it will work again with free cities. And the other aspect is what you already said, Daniel, is there's a lot of demand now because more and more people think, oh, it's somehow not working. I want an alternative. I'm not okay with the rules and the surveillance and all that the governments are putting on us. And what I want to present is an alternative product that people can choose. And it's not enough just to make some technological gimmicks, right? I mean, you need really, that's my conviction, you need a physical safe space, right? Where they cannot come and confiscate your computer. Where they cannot just say, no, you pay double taxes. No, you are secured by a contract and by physical security. So this is something where I think it's a difference to some ideas in the Bitcoin world. We just have this bit nation or whatever. No, this is real. This is something for real.
Mm-hmm. And where I see basically where a free city concept and network states come together and can basically prosper from each other is if you link all of the services you need as a human to a territory, even though it's a special economic zone, you are still vulnerable to attacks. If, for example, a government is changing, they just say, we don't agree on this agreement anymore, whatever, and you are in danger. So speaking from a historic point, it's just a matter of time until this special economic zone will be attacked if you don't have an army. And what we developed, or is basically, you can call it pillars of control, basically what keeps the matrix together, or just things a human needs. No, it's education, it's community, it's identity, it's insurance, it's jobs, it's accommodation, you can go on and on. And I think if you would mix this and put some things into the metaverse, now is a bad word, but basically into a digital sphere, it cannot be attacked. Just like Bitcoin, you know, I mean, can be attacked, but still is resistant to attacks. And I think if we would decentralize ourselves and have those special economic zones as places where we live, but still mix it with other economic zones, for example, built in insurance, it might be smarter, you know, because in the end also, and then I finish and let you speak, is that people still want to travel, you know, and it's about creating an easy entry point into those alternative societies. So how do you see this potential digital metaverse popping up, or network states mixing with this idea, you know?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I like the network state idea, right? Because we have to start somewhere. And this is something where there's a combination easily possible, right? You can say we have here a group of a network state that would fit into the ideology of a free city, right? There may be others that have different approaches. Then there wouldn't be so ideal partner of not so an ideal fit. But in many cases, and I have already been approached by people saying, hey, we are currently setting up a network state, but if you have a territory, we would be interested to get there. And the other thing is that you're right. I mean, to protect yourself, it's better not to put all eggs in one basket. So that means what we always wanted to do at TIPOLIS is create a network of free cities, or call it international cities, right? So you can easily move from one to another, and you might have, in addition to that, on top, on a virtual level, more some organizations which are totally unbound from or unconnected to any given physical territory. Not a problem. But for your own safety and your freedom, it's necessary that you have at least one place where you can go and where you are left alone. And if this is not one place, but say 10 places where you say they're all linked together in a kind of a Hanseatic network of the 21st century, that is the end goal, right? And then there will be new ideas all the time, produced by network staters, produced by people who have ideas about what elements they can spin off from the physical world into the virtual world, and which have to remain in the physical world. And I mean, this is definitely happening. The other thing is that it has already started in Honduras, because the Honduran government back in 2013, they created something which called SEDES, the Special Economic Zones. They're called Zones for Economic Development and Employment. And the specialty about them is they allow for an autonomy which comes very close to a free private city. And therefore, 3 cities have been formed. And then a socialist government was voted in, and they want to destroy all the cities. They have repealed the law. But here now comes the thing, because this was the question, what about practice? Now, one of the biggest defenses of free cities and special administrative zones is that they have investor protection agreements normally with the government. Another trick is that the company that is running the show is based in a country that has a bilateral investment treaty with the host nation. And exactly that happened in Honduras. And now they are make big noises that everything is illegal and they want to close it down. But the reality is they have made a law that this is allowed. They have even changed the constitution, saying that's okay. The constitutional court has said, no, that's okay. And now you cannot just come and withdraw everything. And since they are learning this now the hard way, one of the cities has now filed for international arbitration and coming up with a $10 billion claim, right? And what that was frightening for the Honduran new government. And now they are probably coming back to the negotiation table. So this is how it works in the real world, right? It's not always nice and we are all friends. But I think if you make, and this is a lesson that especially lefties have to learn, if you make an agreement, you are bound by that agreement, right? You cannot just change it later because you think I have another idea or because you have a majority behind you. That is called rule of law. And if you really have countries, and most countries do stick to that rule of law because they've signed respective agreements, this is what we can do, right? This is our main defense. And I'm relatively sure that if we can show it 1, 2, 3 times that these cities are working and that the host nation is benefiting from them, that the local people are benefiting from them, which will happen, I have absolutely no doubt about that, then it's much easier to establish more of those. And at one point in time, even countries will say, I want that, right? So, and so far, the time is now to do it. It's hard in the beginning. We're seeing it now, but it nevertheless has to be done.
So that's a really nice perspective. Like I have like a lot of questions. Like I will like one of my questions is like about the law. Like for example, like if you're in a country and you have an agreement with this free city, is the law of the country more powerful than like the law in the free city? For example, can I be a murderer in a free city and not in the country? And then like the other question is more about like a philosophical perspective, but what you are doing basically is creating three private cities, so from scratch. But we see also in the world, like, or I see it, that already existing cities are converted into private cities because of investment or because of, for example, a private company will own these buildings, these administrations, or these, and more privates are owning parts of already existing cities, and these cities could be converted into free private cities at some point.
Yeah, but the problem with the private developments and the private cities or private communities you have at the moment is they have zero legal autonomy, right? The only thing that is private is that the ownership of the buildings is private, and maybe the administration, but you're right, it can be turned in this future into a more free private city type of where you say, okay, you are governing this a part of the city and you have certain rights that you can establish your own rules. Now, in the big free private city environment that we are working, that means dealing with governments, the point normally is that they say, yeah, you can do that, but our requirements are that the constitution must apply, the international agreements that we have conducted must apply, and often criminal law, right? So that if you are the crime, what is crime outside the city must be crime inside the city, but the persecution is done by your personnel, by your people. So this is basically first-hand experience from the real world. But in principle, the rules in the free private city, they prevail. This is their own rules prevail, but only in their territory, right? So and that is applicable for all rules. And again, then it is a question of negotiation. What kind of rules the host nation want to be still existing in the free private city? And as I said, it's mostly parts of the constitution, criminal law, and the international agreements, because it's not possible for free. It is possible, but it's not advisable for a free city that we just do whatever we want when it comes to finance and banking, because the host nation is then part of the international banking, the SWIFT system, for example, and they cannot risk to getting kicked out of that. And we can't neither. So we have to stick to some of those rules, but this is all doable, right? I mean, we are still in a transformation period where you have all the big governments, big international organizations like United Nations and WHO that have enormous power, and there's not much room for new ideas, new solutions, but there are still some niches, right? Where you can, for example, say you have 190, 5 countries, and you say, okay, now let's look at all those countries and see who has the most liberal regulation in that area. And then we say, hey, we make the same because it's already existing, right? These are things which are more easily, you can more easily convince governments to something that is already existing than if you're creating something new. So you have some arbitrage here for regulation. And that is, of course, something which is not coming easily. And normally it's years of negotiations with the government before you can establish such a zone that gives you the right to create a free private city. And in the future, I don't know, maybe there will be existing cities saying, hey, we are subscribing to that model. And the people who do not like it, they have to move to other places, other parts of the city, for example.
Mm. How I see it, if Bitcoin would have asked for allowance, to turn this idea into reality, no one would have said yes. And how I see it, and you are a lawyer, basically is, and I'm not like anarcho, whatever, somewhere in between, is that you create a different kind of power sphere or even jurisdictions. And you don't even ask for permission, because what we are basically doing is bringing more good to the world. And at one point, it's senseless to ask or to negotiate. Of course, with territory, you need to negotiate, you need to have legal agreements, you know, because they have physical power over you. But for example, when it comes to currencies, or when it comes to company formation, I would try to shut every entry point where you could be hijacked. This is really important. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is true that Bitcoin was a parallel structure. A successful parallel structure was created without asking for permission, right? And that is exactly how it should be. Now, in our case, I think free cities is the next big thing in the parallel world of parallel structures. I mean, crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin certainly was the big one. And the free city movement, it is a movement indeed, because it's not only me, it's really several hundred people in the world trying to make it happen in similar concepts or related concepts. And the network state is one of them. And I think that the difference is, because we need physical territory, we have to play by the rules of the existing world, at least in the first round. But then we can introduce all kinds of innovations, which there's no regulation because it's not known, right? And then you can have a little bit the same effect that you had with Bitcoin.
Think freely. What could be the best outcome in, let's say, 10 years from now? If everything goes according to plan, and there will be a hype 10 times bigger than NFTs around those societies, and we will receive a lot of funding, will be all over the media. I mean, you know, your book was written in 2018. The mainstream media would not talk about this. And in fact, my advisor told me, you know, Titus, he is on German radio. Like 1 week ago, you gave an interview there. So, and I have a good gut feeling that this really can explode. What would be the best case in 10 years from now, if you could dream?
I think ideally in 10 years, we have 10, I call it international cities, right, which have this substantial autonomy that I have described in my book. And we have a network, we have formed the network. My company has formed a network of 10 international cities, which have, if you are admitted in one, you can switch to the others and you can move your businesses there on all continents. And we have associations with 20 other territories that are not exactly our model, but comparable model. Also, people who like ideas, maybe a network state that has become physical. And they are also part of the network. And these networks are helping each other. And you can say that over time, they're forming something like a decentralized country. So this is a development I see coming. And the country, decentralized countries, is based on common values, right? It's, you like this model, no matter where you're born or what your ethnic background is. This is, I want to be part of that this is my country, right? So, and this is my society. And this is the idea. And probably some of these cities will be different to cater to different target groups, right? So that everybody, ideally, maybe not in 10 years, but in 30 years, can find a society that best fits his or her personality. And may even be only for a couple of years, but this is what I think is needed, is choice, competition, which will increase the quality and then be much more peaceful than what we have today. Because if you don't like it here, then you go somewhere else. There's no need to start a political fight or to discriminate against people and call them whatever word, right, to get a political gain from it. That is disappearing. And that would mean that we would, over time, be much more successful, much richer, higher standard of living, more freedom, and with with economic power comes military power. So there will, at a point where it's like in the Hanseatic League, where these cities are quite powerful, so they cannot just taken away by a big country under the pretense of whatever, just because they don't like us. And so this is what I see is coming in the future. Well, maybe not in 10 years, but it is. This is the direction I see coming, because at the moment it's going into the other direction. It's more centralization, it's world government, but this is not going to work. I'm sure about that. And insofar, central planning never worked, and it will not work this time. So there will be cracks in the system, and the great reset will result in a reset of the elites at the end, right? And then suddenly a lot of new opportunities are popping up, and we are here to make use of that opportunity.
That's true. And what I see actually that what is happening is that countries start to compete for citizens. You know, we have those nomad visas, and there was one country brave enough to say, we're going to do it. Okay. And we also pitched this already in 2018 to Malta, but they were not brave enough to put their name behind this idea. So what you said, you need one working example with a lot of success, and then it's like a domino effect in other countries which just copy, because politicians don't want to risk their reputation. So I think, yeah, your plan, make 1, 2 successful or grow it to 10, and then it's a domino effect. It cannot be stopped. Yeah, Loic, you had a question.
People who are listening to us, like, are not all of them aware of all this technological and are not don't have a lot of knowledge. So my last question, and I think it will be interesting, like, what would you say to my mom, which is scared about the future, to invite her to come in a free private city?
Well, go where you are treated best. And normal people do not need thousands of laws to live peacefully together. And they don't want to pay for things that they don't have ordered, right? In our place, you only pay for what you know in advance, and we cannot change the rules. And insofar, we guaranteeing your security and liberty and protection of your physical body and life. And we will create some infrastructure, and we tell you that what you have to pay for that, say 1,500 euro per year. And then you can decide for yourself if you like this model. But if you like it and come, it won't be changed. It will remain like that. And you are free to do as you choose, as long as you respect the others' rights, of course. That gives you much more freedom, but also much more security in today's system, because this is our main product. Security for your life, liberty, and property. So if it's broken into your apartment, you can ask for damages even from the operator, right? Because I guaranteed security and you pay for it. So again, I think we treat you better than anything you know from your current state, and eventually people go where they're treated best. That's why I have hope that we will succeed, even with people like your mother, who might not have thought about theoretical questions about which society is best. It's just, my idea is just put a product on the market. If it's good, people will come. No more need for argumentation and reasoning and debates, right?
Yeah. Offer a sexy product in like an entry point, you know? And people will start thinking, and yeah, it's true. Thank you very much for this input. I think the likelihood is really high that this will happen now. Maybe in the next year, we will see a lot of media coverage, and we need to be on point. So thank you, Titus.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really interesting.
We need pioneers.
Okay, and all the best for your event. And yes, I hope that other people are also coming up and starting their own projects.